It's never too late. They
Yes.
did a study where they took nursing home residents who were sedentary, right, before they started, and the average age was 87, okay?
Wow.
They were 87, and they put them on an 8-week strengthening regimen, and
Yeah.
the average improvement was 174% improvement in their strength,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that's impressive. At
right.
87, you would think by that time, like conventional wisdom would be just literally it's too late and there's nothing you can do to make improvements with these people that have been sedentary at that age. That's amazing. All right, welcome. Episode 3, Thrive AF. That's Thrive After 40. I am Keith, one of the hosts of the podcast. I'm here with my friend Lou. Lou, say hello.
Hi, I'm Lou. Uh,
I know who you are.
I'm the other host of the podcast, so
There
I'm
we go.
excited to this is an exciting topic for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Super exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a big like part of the structure of the book and just life in general. It just sort of enables so much more stuff that we talk about. So, why don't you talk about the lever that we are going to talk about today?
Okay, so this lever is lever number 2 in the book, and it is exercise and movement, basically. And so I think specifically, unless you've probably changed it a little bit, but from what I remember for our pre-discussion, we're going to
Hmm.
talk about just what kind of exercise and movement do you need to do, how much of
Yep.
it do you need to do. We're going to talk about VO2 max, the definition of that. There's a lot of people that are throwing that around. We're going to talk about, is it ever too old to start?
But before we do that, we're going to add a disclaimer at the beginning of this. So, this podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only. So, check with a doctor prior to starting any new exercise program. So,
Right.
we want to make sure to get that out of the way before we kind of dive into this stuff. So, that being said, why don't we go right into it? We'll start with that first question. So, yeah, this was a good question, or this will be a good part of the discussion. So, if you could turn exercise literally into a magic pill, would it be the most powerful anti-aging drug on the earth?
Yes, I think it would be because exercise basically helps every single longevity pathway.
Okay.
It helps everything from your gut health, from your cognition. It wards off, helps to ward off depression. It helps to
Yep.
ward off Alzheimer's. It helps to ward off bone loss, muscle loss. It helps with your strength and your mobility and your ability to do things, including your balance. So it helps you prevent falling. It helps your heart, cardiovascular system. I mean, it just goes on and on the different benefits of it. And but the only drawback though is that it takes time and it takes
Yeah.
effort and the
Right.
the results don't show up right away and then you have to be consistent with it. So if
Yeah.
it was a pill, hey, it would be that much easier for us to just pop a pill, right? But it definitely would be I would argue the most potent anti-aging longevity pill out there by
Yeah.
far. By far.
The the idea of kind of a magic pill for health has been around for a long time, and I think a lot of the discussion these days is positioning things like GLPs as these magic pills, and you see a lot about GLPs and peptides in general. But the one thing that we talked about prior to this is the years and years and decades of science around exercise and movement is solid and it's there and it supports everything that you said about the way that it's the foundation for healthy aging and doing so much more to improve. And while there is obviously a lot of stuff happening in the world of GLPs and peptides, it's still relatively new. And there's still a lot that I think needs to be kind of discovered and learned about that. It's working well for a lot of people. The weight loss benefits are pretty well proven at this point. And there's even, I think, some additional research going on into what else GLPs can do. But what we know for certain today is that exercise and movement should be part of anybody's plan, um, to age gracefully, but also just to be healthy at any age, really.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I would agree, and even obviously if you're taking a peptide or GLP-1s, you need to have a doctor's involvement and approval, and if
sure.
your doctor wants you to take it. But I would even suggest just asking your doctor, as well, if you should do some exercise to complement it, because some of the side effects of the GLP-1s, exercise can help to reduce or prevent those side effects, such as muscle loss
Yep.
and things like that. And another thing too about exercise, and if it was a pill, you assume that it would still be free, is exercise can be done completely free,
Yep.
really. And
I
the
was going to say the same thing.
GLP-1s are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's definitely a barrier. And, sometimes we forget that there's a lot, and we'll talk about this maybe a little bit later in the episode, but there's a lot that you can do that doesn't require or doesn't require you to pay any sort of fee. People might be surprised a little bit at the what you can do just on your own, and not everything has to be high intensity or supported by some sort of gym membership or fancy equipment. So we'll get
right.
into that kind of as we
Yeah.
go along. Perfect. All right. Next question. So, what do you mean when you say we don't stop moving because we get old? We get old because we stop moving.
Yeah, well, that's it. Basically, I would just throw out another cliche or tagline, and that is use it or lose it. And it
Yeah.
really is true. If you don't give your body a reason to hold on to something, whether it's an activity or a function or a body part, it's going to assume you don't need it anymore. It's really that simple. And
Yeah.
it's easier if you've always done something to keep being able to do it with each decade of life.
Yeah.
So if you've always, worked out and kept a certain level of strength and be able to lift things, then you're more likely to be able to lift your great grandchild at 85 than you are have never if you haven't worked out in 10 or 15 years, and then all of a
Right.
sudden you have this great grandchild that runs up to you with this big smiling face and wants you to grab him and hold him. And I had a patient like that. She came to me and she was in her late 70s, and she wanted to be able to lift and hold her great grandchild because he was the cutest thing, and he would run up to her with this really big smile on his face, and he wanted her to pick him up and hold him, and she just didn't feel safe doing it. So
Yeah.
she came to me and we were able to accomplish it, but it would have been easier had she just always been able to do that rather
Yeah.
than trying to do it, in her late 70s.
Yeah. The one of the examples my business partner and our head coach for terminus would use all the time was you want to be able to get up off the toilet when you're older. I mean, a very practical thing that a lot of people struggle with.
Yep.
And he would bring that up, you know, 10, 15 years ago and still does today because it's a common, thing of just trying to rise up from a sitting position that a lot of people have trouble with. And, it's going to happen or it's going to come if we're lucky to live long enough for all of us. But I think you're right. The more that we can do while we're able to kind of train and just be physically active and do exercise and movement, the better off, hopefully, we'll be when we start feeling those natural effects of getting older. The topic of VO2 max is a metric that comes up a lot and has been coming up a lot. So, can you talk a little bit about what that is and why you feel like it's important?
Yeah, I would say just the layman's term, the easiest way to explain it is it's just basically how efficiently your body can, and how well your body can transport oxygen throughout your system. And if you think about oxygen as this is a crude definition, but as just gasoline for your body, the more efficiently and the better you can transport that through your body to the parts that need it, the better shape you are cardiovascularly. So it's a really good metric for how good a shape you're in cardiovascularly. But it's also been shown to, the higher it is, the less mortality that you have or the less risk you have for mortality. But the biggest gains go from being low on that score to moderate. So you have huge gains going from low to moderate. And they've also shown that there's no, there's benefits all the way up, even to the highest levels. And the highest levels, meaning the most fit individuals, have the lowest chance of dying from all causes. So it just keeps improving. It levels off as you go up, but the higher
Right.
that is, the the less chance you have of dying from all causes,
So, w
except accidents, maybe, you know.
right, of course.
Yeah.
So then that improvement from low to medium is probably where you see the I don't know if this is true or not, but is it where you see more and quicker growth when you start like an exercise program and then you kind of level off and it's harder to, get to that super high level because that is like more intense training or like
Yeah, I think it's the curve, it goes like the higher you get towards perfection, if you will, the
yeah,
harder it is to eke out more gains. So in the beginning, it's definitely easier to acquire gains, and as you get higher up the scale, it just gets harder and harder to eke
yeah,
out any more benefits, you know?
okay. Yeah, I think one of the things that I know that I have been not struggling with, but it's hard to focus on what are the metrics that are really important, especially if you're using things like fitness trackers um, that give you now a ton of information. VO2 Max is usually one of them, but there's so much data in there that they can collect on your Apple Watch or whatever kind of fitness tracker that you're using. Maybe keying in on VO2 max sounds like it might be one of the places where it would make sense for you at least to know what that level is and try to do things that specifically target that to improve it.
Yeah, I mean, it is part of what I would recommend something you should work on, you know, and maybe
Yeah.
so that brings us to sort of another part of the topic, and that is kind of what should you
Yeah.
do, and we talked about that, you and I, before, and it's like, it depends where you're at, and you could probably, divide that into two basic uh, parts. One would be the overall longevity, and I'm
Mm,
assuming that if your people are watching this podcast, they have an interest in longevity, and so one goal would be, okay, maybe when I'm 95, I still want to be able to do X, X, and X. Like maybe I want to be able to still lift up. We talked about already my great grandchild. Maybe I want to be able to get off a toilet really
right.
easily in a restaurant that doesn't have the bars, and
Yeah.
maybe I want to be able to pull my suitcase off of a baggage carousel by myself. And maybe I want to be able to walk across a cobblestone street and, confidently, or,
Yeah.
something like that, or be able to do a couple staircases. So then that's going to mean, okay, what do I need to do now in order to be able to do that, preserve that ability, when I do get to that decade of life.
Yeah.
But then you could get more specific as well, depending on what your individual goals are. So yours might be what to do CrossFit into your whatever age, and so you're going to probably steer your goals around that. Mine might be to, get my black belt in jujitsu or something, but in my 60s. And so I'm
Yeah.
going to gear my exercise a little more around that. And so everybody's going to have their own little specific goals. I have one lady, she came to me and recently, and she's in her late 70s, and she wants to hike the Camino de Santiago, which is a trail in Europe. And
Yeah.
so she has some issues, in her knee and her ankle. And so she came to me so that I can help her do it safely, but also so we can get her in shape enough where when she does it, she can actually enjoy it rather than, struggling through it the whole time. So
Yeah.
everybody's goals are going to be different. But the biggest gains are shown in the beginning. And so if you go from sedentary to just 90 minutes a week, your cause your chances of dying from all causes go down 14%, and no pill can even touch that. So
Yeah.
people who aren't doing, who are pretty sedentary and really aren't used to exercising, just do that little minimum, and you have a huge benefit. And you don't even have to go from doing nothing to 30 minutes 3 times a week. Just do 5 minutes a day and just gradually build it up. Maybe a minute or 2 a day of maybe you just walk. You go out of your house, you walk 2.5 minutes to the left, and you turn around and walk 2.5 minutes back, and just build it up little by little. So I'm not sure if I answered the question or got way off
No,
track, but
I think that's within the realm of, we were talking about returning to the idea of goals and kind of why they're important, their importance as we age. And I think setting that target or having that target and giving yourself something to work for. I mean, it makes sense at any age, but it seems maybe especially poignant as we get older, so that we don't lose sight of the fact that um, we're still able, hopefully, to do things like that hike. Sounds amazing.
yeah,
Um,
we need a challenge to invigorate us or horizon to march towards, you know? So whatever makes the juice worth the squeeze, you
mhm.
know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like when you were mentioning CrossFit, and whether that's one of my goals long term to stay with, I feel it almost the opposite to where I'll do CrossFit as long as it keeps me fit enough to do the other things that I really want to do.
Ah, good
And,
point.
or as long as I still own a CrossFit business.
Right.
But, at some point, and there's been times when I've thought about maybe changing what I do, but I really like just the community, and obviously I'm gym owner, but if we were to move, for example, to another city or another state or somewhere else, I would have to really think about whether I would get back into CrossFit or maybe do something that's different because I've been doing it for such a long time. But I really like doing it now because I just like the people a heck of a lot, and it does make me feel capable in a lot of different ways. So, but it's not the only thing out there for sure. Um, so I guess along those lines, when people think about exercise and movement, their minds immediately go to gyms or running marathons or kind of extreme workouts. But what do you think most people actually need?
Yeah, so that's why I was kinda, like, thinking, "Oh, man, I think I got way ahead of myself." So, I'm gonna try to answer that without repeating myself because I think a lot of what I said before applies, but basically, it's I guess you could look at it like a ladder, so to speak. So, if you're at the very first part of the ladder,
Yeah,
again, just doing the research shows that if you just do 90 minutes a week, like I said, your chances of dying from all causes goes down 14%. No pill can touch that. And
right.
so, and again, you don't have to start off going 0 to 30, just go 0 to 5 minutes, then 7 minutes, each week add a minute or 2. So that's huge. And then if you're already kind of at that level, then you can kind of go to the levels of what the government recommends, through all the research for the NIH and that kind of thing. And what I think is good too. And that would be like say 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous exercise. And moderate, basically, another word for it is zone two,
Okay.
which basically means that you can. It's a sustained activity, and so if you figure 150 minutes, that's 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So it could be walking, or it could be doing an elliptical, or jogging, or riding a stationary bike, or something
Mhm.
like that. And it's where you can still hold a conversation in complete sentences, but your voice should be a little bit labored. So if you and I were talking on the phone and I didn't tell you I was exercising, you might ask me, say, "Hey, are you exercising or something?" Like, you'd be able to hear it in my
Right.
voice.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so that's basically the level. That's how you know you're at the right level. And then you would also want to do 2 days a week at least, maybe even 3 days a week of strengthening,
Yeah.
and preferably all body, so you wanna do upper body, you wanna do lower body, and you wanna do core. You wanna also work on your balance and your, mobility a couple times a week. And
Hmm.
then you also wanna work on your VO2 max, and that's what you and I were talking about earlier, and that is
Yeah.
a couple times a week. You ideally would work on that as well, and that's where you could say do the same activity that you did in zone 2, but now you're pushing it, and now you can only speak in a couple words, and then you gotta take a breath. So
Okay.
your voice is very labored, and then and you should definitely get professional assistance on that if you've never done that kind of stuff, is because that's now
Yeah.
you need somebody that can help you out with that. So that is what I think the ideal prescription, just kind of from a broad base.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I think when people hear strength training, a lot of times they think immediately of weight training, and I don't necessarily think that's the same thing. But I also feel like there seems to be a pretty common consensus these days that some form, whether it's resistance training or body weight training or training with weights, some form of strength training seems to be recommended for people that are older and older now than maybe it was before. And yeah, the idea being, I think trying to maintain that base level of strength as you age and get older seems to be almost like common wisdom now. Do you think that's true? Or you see that as well?
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think if you because we start losing strength in our mid-30s, and if you don't do anything to reverse it by the time you're 85, you go, "Wow, how'd I get so weak?" Because you
Yeah.
just lose it little by little, but it's never too late to change it, and I know that's a kind of another topic we were gonna talk about. But also here's something that is important too. You wanna maintain your muscle mass because muscle is makes you so much healthier. Muscle does all kinds of things, including improve your immune system, but it also is there's no better padding for God forbid if you do fall than muscle.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you want some padding if you do fall, you want some muscle, and so the way to maintain muscle is you gotta do some resistance training.
Yeah. I'll tell you, last time I was down visiting my family in Florida, I went to the gym. It's a very small little gym, and they have a pool in the place where they live. And I was pleasantly surprised by the number of people that were coming in and either using machines or using free weights or had a
Yeah.
trainer that would come in. And they were, my parents are in their 80s. So, where they live, there's a lot of people just like them. But I think this idea of maintaining that strength so that they can do the things they want to do, like play golf and play tennis and play pickleball, is something that seems to be getting more and more common, which is good. And there were a lot of people swimming too. Swimming is just such a great exercise for
Yeah.
so many reasons. But so, what about people that might be listening or watching this who think that it's simply too late to get started? What do you tell them?
Hogwash.
Baloney,
It's
nonsense, balderdash.
It's never too late. They
Yes.
did a study where they took nursing home residents who were sedentary, right, before they started, and the average age was 87, okay?
Wow.
They were 87, and they put them on an 8-week strengthening regimen, and
Yeah.
the average improvement was 174% improvement in their strength.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's impressive.
right.
At 87, you would think by that time, like, conventional wisdom would be just literally it's too late, and there's nothing you can do to make improvements with these people that have been sedentary at that age. That's amazing.
Uh, yeah, so it's never too late, and I see it all the time in here. Can I tell you
Yeah.
Coralie's story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Coralie is an 85-year-old fantastic woman. I have known her for several years. She is a retired MD and professor at a prominent medical school up in the Northeast. She was
Mhm.
in charge of the residency program there as well for years. Okay. And she was one of the foremost physicians in her realm in the world. Okay. So she spread all kinds of good throughout the world, right? Including the residents that she trained in her program over all those years. But
Yeah.
she almost didn't get into medical school. She almost didn't graduate undergrad. And here's what happened. So at her school back in the day, you had to pass PE in order to graduate. Okay. So she took it as a freshman. And in order to graduate, you had to pass this physical fitness test, which
Mhm.
involved, things like pull-ups and push-ups and running a certain distance within a certain amount of time. And she failed it. So then she took it again as a sophomore and she failed it. Now, keep in mind, this lady is super smart. She's getting straight A's and everything else, most likely. And she fails PE now 2 years in a row. Then she takes it as a junior and she fails it. And she,
It
ta-
sounds like The Breakfast Club where he couldn't pass shop. Do you remember that?
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah. I mean, so so then she takes it the fourth year, and she said basically they felt sorry for her and
Oh
let
my
her
gosh.
pass or helped her pass. But we were talking about it, and what we figured out in hindsight was they never did any strengthening or anything or training in PE class in order to help them pass she said,
So
"Oh
it was
yeah,
like,
we
just go play kickball and then we're going to do
yeah
pull-ups for the test
yeah." Yeah, it was like, okay, here's how you hold a tennis racket. Here's how you swing the racket. Here's how you hold a golf club, things
and
like
run a
that.
mile.
And yeah, and okay, now the end of the year, here's the test.
That's
So
insane.
I know. So she just always thought, well, okay, I'm just weak. I was born weak. I'm not a strong person. Okay.
Right.
So then she helped her husband, who was very ill for a lot of years, and then unfortunately he passed away. And then she realized, okay, I got to take care of my own health now. I've
Yeah.
neglected it for a long time. And she was scared to death. She has a really bad hip. Her hip is very arthritic and painful. And she's afraid, lives by herself now, afraid to death of falling. And so she came in to see me and she said, I cannot get a hip surgery because I'm allergic to the metal that they put in the prosthetic.
Oh
So she
God.
doesn't have that as an option. So it's like, okay, our goal is to keep the hip working as well as possible and as painless as possible, given the fact that it's got severe arthritis, but also work on her balance. And then, part of all that is getting her as strong as possible. And so a few months after working with her, she had to empty her storage facility, and she was incredibly impressed with herself that she was able to unload the storage facility on her own, including carrying, heavy boxes out of the storage facility on her own, which she said she never would have been able to do at
Yeah.
really any other decade of her life because she said her arms were just always really weak. And now she
Yeah.
has really strong arms and a strong body. And we didn't start working on that till she was in her early 80s. So,
Wow. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's one of the things that I like the best about being part of the gym, in the community is we have people that come in for the first time. You can tell, like some of them have never worked out before. And then they'll tell similar stories, being a lot younger, but talking about things that they can now do or something that they did that just like you can see that it just changes their whole mentality about what they're capable of and what they can do. So it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that after you're 80, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great feeling. That's cool. Um, all right, we're going to move on to the next segment now because we have to hustle into our rapid fire. This is a new segment we're adding to the podcast. It's called Rapid
Uh-oh.
Fire. All right,
I'm
I'm
in
going
the
to
hot
test you.
seat,
You are
sweating.
in the hot seat. All right, number one, best exercise for longevity.
I would say that whatever it is that gets your body moving, that you're going to enjoy enough to do it consistently.
Good answer.
Did I
So
did I
a
avoid the
non-answer answer. You're supposed to have the answer.
uh
No,
well, I mean it's because what gets me going is not going to get my wife going, that's for sure.
sure.
So,
Yeah. No, I hear you. All right, cool. Second question. What do you feel like is the most underrated movement habit for supporting longevity?
well, I think just little things that you could do, like take the stairs instead of elevators.
Okay.
Um Here's something funny that I noticed the other day. So I was going to the gym to meet my buddy, and we were going to do some treadmill work there, right? And I spent 5 minutes driving through the parking lot trying to park as close to the gym as possible. It's like, wait, does that make any sense?
You should be
Um,
parking as far away as possible.
I know.
You
So
should be actually riding your bike to the gym.
right, exactly,
That's
exactly.
fun.
But so that would be one too. Just park a little bit further away than usual. Just try to get your steps in any way that you
Okay,
can.
so the underrated movements are essentially small things potentially that you could add up over, the course of a day or the course of a week. Actually, do add up over time. So don't necessarily have to think about I've got to dedicate an hour a day or 2 hours every other day. You can do small things that actually um, may not you may not even like think about as exercise, but that add up over time.
Yeah, the guidelines have changed. They used to say that you had to do at least 10 minutes at a time for it to be meaningful, but you don't
Yeah,
anymore. That now they just say, just so that it all adds up to, you know, that
yeah,
much time. So just get it in any way that you can. And a lot of the people that especially Dr. J, who was in my book as one of my health heroes, and he's the oldest he's 90 now. He just is constantly moving. He said he'll come and pick his son-in-law up from work, and if his son-in-law is still doing some paperwork, he walks, just
yeah.
exercise.
Mhm.
He's always trying to exercise and just keep moving.
All right.
You
Good answer. All right. The third question and last question. What do you think is the most dangerous mindset when it comes to aging?
I would say I'm too old for that.
That's good. Yeah, that's very succinct. So thinking, just like we were talking about before, that it's too late or that I'm too old for it. There's lots of things that you can do at lots of advanced ages that, even though they might seem not that significant, can be really significant, turn things
Yeah,
around. All right.
yeah.
Cool. Well, you survived the first rapid fire
Woo!
drive AF gauntlet. Maybe we'll turn around next time. You can shoot the questions at me,
Perfect. Sounds good.
but I get to write the questions.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. We are going to wrap up here shortly, but real quick, we are going to try and add another segment to the podcast. And this is one called Synergistic Levers. So the idea here, going back to episode 1 and 2, when you talked about and introduced the concept of levers, one of the things that you said that stuck out to me was that they don't work by themselves. Oftentimes, these are synergistic in nature. So you might be doing an activity that probably supports more than one lever at a time. And so I'm going to give an example from my life of where I think some of that synergy takes place. And then if you want to do an example, you can do. So I chose the two that we have done before. So last week was mindset, and this week is exercise and movement. And my story is I'll try to make it brief. But one of the things that I enjoy doing still outside of the gym is playing volleyball. And play for about the last 4 or 5 years. I've put a team together of people at the gym. My wife plays, and we play in a sand league recreationally in Piedmont Park in Atlanta in the
Nice.
spring and summer. And yeah, it's really fun. My wife, I guess, funny story. Um, Dana and I actually met playing sand volleyball here in Atlanta in a sport and social club league
Nice.
when we were in our 20s. So we're back at it. And she
Nice.
still has some of the championship sweatshirts that she won when we were in our 20s in that league. And
Seriously.
sometimes I'll wear them to the game.
You got to
Um,
wear one of those. Wear that the next podcast.
all right.
I want to
Yeah.
see it.
It's getting a little warm for sweatshirts, but I'll see what I can do. So I guess going back to the levers. So when I started, around the first of the year, one of the things that I wanted to do as a goal was work on my vertical jumping, because that was one area of the game that I really enjoy, blocking and hitting. It's the funnest part of the game. And so I decided that I was going to try and improve my box jumps in the gym and go back to, I have been scaling to a 20-inch box. Usually the height for men is listed as 24 inches. And I'd been doing 20 and 18. I said, I'm going to really give it a shot and go back to 24. So I started doing that at the beginning of the year.
Mm.
And so I did that for a little while and then realized that my knees were starting to ache, especially when we were doing box jump overs and I was trying to do that pivot at the top on the taller box. And so where the mindset comes in is I revisited that goal that I had and tried to figure out, was it really worth it? And came to the conclusion that no, it's not. The potential that I might gain half an inch or an
No.
inch in my vertical leap at the expense of possibly being in pain was stupid. So the mindset piece of it is being able to reevaluate a goal and step back from it and say, like, what are you really getting out of this? What you feel like you should be, or is it worth it? So what I did is I changed. I went back to using a smaller box. I've even gone to doing step overs instead of box jump overs. We did box jump overs this week, and I did step overs. My knees feel fine. I feel like I'm still getting plenty of a workout, and I can also use that to change the way I'm thinking about this volleyball league because it's recreational. It's not that important. I can change my game to be more of a support player. I can set, I can, do other things on the court. I don't have to be the one, that thinks he's going to,
Spike it.
spike him. Yeah, every time, even though I want to be, even
Yep.
though I want to be. So that's my story about synergy between a couple levers that we've been talking about. That's
I
very
like it.
reasonable for me. So.
That's good. You could always do what we used to do in college, and that is just to lower the net a little bit.
Yeah, the nets at the courts at the park are not that great. So depending on which one you get or what, time of the
Yeah,
year it is, it can be pretty saggy anyway.
back and down.
But yeah, yeah,
That's
we need
funny.
that for it. But
Well, I don't have anything as entertaining as that. Mine is just kind of what I was thinking about, just generic. It's like when I exercise, I tend to sleep better. And then when I sleep better, I don't crave the junk food as much and I can think better and I do better at work.
yep,
So it's just something as simple as that.
yep,
Honestly though, I've been exercising since I was young. And the reason being because I figured out at an early age that, wow, I feel so much better when I work out.
yeah.
Especially here, I just feel so much better up here. It's like it releases whatever steam is built up in the
Hmm.
tea kettle, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
and I just feel so much better. And yeah, the being stronger and all that stuff is great as well. But mainly, this is what keeps me coming back because I feel so much better when I work out. My buddy and I talk about this. You drag yourself to the gym some days because you don't feel like it. But
yep,
I've never, ever regretted doing a workout. I
yeah,
always am so glad I did it because I feel so much better.
yeah. No, I agree. All right. Well, cool. I think that's it. I think that's where we're going to end it. Um, And we didn't really talk about any like specific studies or books or anything in this episode, but we will put a link to your book, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, which is
Oh, yeah.
called Thrive, and there'll be a link to that in all of our descriptions and podcasts. So look that up. It's a good read. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Me too.
Help Lou out. Buy the book. Um,
And in the
yeah, and then,
future, is it worth saying in the future we're going to have a website and also a Substack site
yep,
that people will be able to kind of link up with us? And
yep.
can you talk a little bit about what the Substack is going to feature?
I'm gonna hold that in reserve.
Ooh,
I
okay.
want to do a bonus. I want to do a bonus episode just about the Substack when it's ready to launch. But I will
Nice.
say
Okay.
that the website is coming soon, and if it is up before this episode goes out, I'll add a link to the website in the podcast description as well, and then we'll talk
Beautiful.
about it on the next thing as well. So yeah, good stuff coming soon. Hopefully,
Awesome.
if I can get it to work.
Sounds good.
All right, are we gonna try our new sign off?
I forget it already. What is it? Be brave.
No, no. All right, I'll do the first line. Until next time.
um,
Come on.
I forget it. I totally forget. I'm drawing a blank. I like the one
Yeah.
is whether you think you're old or whether you think you're young, you're right.
All right. Let's use that.
I forgot to study it before this episode.
That's all right. I'm cheating. I have it right in front of me. So whether you
Got
think
nothing.
you're old or whether you think you're young, you're right. Let's leave it at that.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Lou. Appreciate it. And we will talk again next time. The Thrive AF podcast is a Pescador Media production.